This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Nuggets!
Andy Reid calls them Nuggies, and he ate them all after filming that State Farm commercial.
Celtics!
That's Common's main focus in regard to flop, sweat, and tears shows.
Nets!
Will be cut down by Nico Medved and his roster of Division II talents on a Monday evening next April while wondering why Jim Nantz was offering everyone his necktie.
Knicks!
Rosen claimed to have named his cat Stevie after the former Fleetwood Mac singer, but there's no chance he could name even one Fleetwood Mac song.
76ers!
86th.
Raptors!
Toronto 0-1. Toronto 0-2.
Thunder!
Jay Ferguson bought the team and relocated them to that island he sings about.
Trailblazers!
Sitting 6 feet above the ground on a hydraulic jack in Portland Midas muffler shop after getting their catalytic converter stolen by some low-level losers.
Jazz!
Common can't look at their name without pronouncing every SEC's as a Z for the next 6 hours until BBP and Potato beg him induced to stop.
Bulls!
It's just a male version of a cow.
Cavaliers!
Their name also describes the attitude and approach they employ on the basketball court.
Pistons!
Have become obsolete and a relic of the past with the advent of electric vehicles being produced in Detroit.
Pacers!
Just 1K away from being the Packers.
Bucks!
Standing perfectly still in the middle of a desolate county road mesmerized by headlights as a 5,500-pound Chevy Silverado barrels toward it at 60 miles per hour.
Warriors!
Suffering from PTSD.
Clippers!
Inoperable because Corey Cove used them trying to shave his neck beard.
Lakers!
They play in the land of 22 lakes.
Suns!
Common created 2 from his loins, while Larry Mondello guy fathered a half dozen kids in a never-ending quest just to have one.
Kings!
There was a big protest last weekend comprised of people who said they couldn't play this season.
Hawks!
How Meat Sauce responds to, hey, someone left some blue chews in the bathroom. Do you know who those are?
Hornets!
Killed by their violent homicidal relatives, the murder hornets.
Heat!
How my roofer buddy Poncho pronounces the word hit. The word hit.
Magic!
During a street magic stunt gone wrong, David Blaine inadvertently made their entire roster disappear.
Wizards!
The most famous one is Merlin, which incidentally is the name of the app Common used to identify nearby bird calls.
Mavericks!
Traded Luka and ended up getting a flag, a surrender flag.
Rockets!
Houston, we have a problem.
Grizzlies!
Circling the tent of an oblivious dolt of a nature lover who for the time being is snacking on an aromatic bag of trail mix.
Pelicans!
Cited by the Louisiana Department of Natural Resources for fishing without a license.
Spurs!
The only victor on their team will be the name of their 2024 first-round draft.
They're all dead!
They're all dead.
Let's go!
The season starts tonight. Here we go. All we can hope for. Then it'd be if I had the genie's lamp. And I rubbed it, and the genie popped out and said, Master, your wish is my command. And I had 3 wishes. My first wish would be to have 3 more wishes. Then I'd have 5.
Brilliant.
Thank you. The next one would be that Anthony Edwards gets enough sleep every night. Because that's the only thing separating Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves from winning the NBA championship. I read it. I saw it. We talked about it yesterday. If he gets enough sleep, he's been encouraged to get 9 to 10 hours. He said, whoa, wait a minute. Let's start at 7 or 8, and we'll gravitate toward 9 to 10. Tend to be, if he doesn't start getting 9 to 10 hours of sleep, we have
no chance.
Wonderful montage.
Well, it sounds like we figured out yesterday why he's not getting enough sleep.
Oh?
He's questionable for the game tonight with back spasms. He's got back issues. He can't sleep.
Where was I? I didn't even golf today. How did I miss that? When did that news break? Was that last night? Fish wrap
It came out in the injury report yesterday, yeah.
Oh.
They said he's questionable for tonight.
Can we just, start the show over and forget about only the beginning? Wow. I wonder if back spasms has anything to do with sleep. Or if he has back spasms because he doesn't have one of those sleep number beds or whatever it is.
Can't afford it.
Can't afford. Well, you would think he would. He's making a lot of money. A lot of money. A lot of people say he's got a lot of money. So Well, there we go. Getting responses you would expect tend to be to the montage. Can't wait to see the Timberwolves back in action. Great montage. One that just said dead list with 2 exclamation marks. Common, could you please send my condolences to Tenneby for the amount of sneaker squeaking he had to endure to make that montage? Woo! All I heard the entirety of the montage was sneakers squeaking in the hardwood. Basketball season. He's excited. There were sneakers squeaking. The sneakers squeaking, I never think about it until you brought it up. You ruined basketball for me because I never thought about it. Now I can't.
How did you not hear it?
Well, because it just blends in when you watch. It's sort of like I have tinnitus.
Is that different than tomorrow is?
I knew you were going to come up with something that wasn't too bad. Tinnitus is a ringing in your ears. And my ears started ringing like a fire alarm. What lyric is that from, Tenneby? You'll never get it. It's Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo. Rick Derringer wrote it.
Brian Oak will know that.
Yeah, Brian Oak will know that. My ears started ringing like a fire alarm. And I used to never think about it, and I generally don't. But if I'm sitting, like, in the evening when everybody else has gone to bed and I'm reading, then I think about the ringing in my ears, and I can't stop thinking about it. And so when I watch basketball now, all I think about is the squeaking of sneakers. Thanks for ruining it for me. I blame you. But I'll get over it. You know all you have to do? Mute the TV. Right?
Or just don't watch.
Well, that's probably
the approach I've taken.
That is the approach I'll probably take tonight. I don't know if we have a programming predicament, but I think you know where I'm going. I thought what we should do, this is an on-air program thing. I'm going to give you a list of television shows, and then we'll just, old ones, obviously, that's the only ones I'm familiar with, just their theme songs. And then we can just pick a different one for each time we do it. So instead of always being, it was Rockford Files forever, then it was Gilligan's Island. And Deuce and I did watch Gilligan's Island again last night. Our favorite episode is the pilot episode, the very first one. When they think that the headhunters, the Marubi, are on the island. It's yeah, I know it's really not, to be honest, it's not a very good show, but it's just what we watched. It was all we had when we were kids. And so we watched that last night, but maybe we'll mix it up with some other television shows. This one says, thanks for reading my text on the air. Here's another. Tenna has really outdone himself this time. This one says, another Wolves season starting? Well, there's that. I had to explain the dead list to a couple of the sales gals. You stumbled upon that. We were in the break room. You always come to the break room at 11:52, like clockwork, to fill up your water bottle and then take over for Nordo. And you heard me trying to explain to them about the dead list. And then they said, what do you play at the end of the season? I said, well, we play Sad Eyes. And they didn't know why. I tried to explain it, well, because the teams always lose. And then you had to mention it's a breakup song, is really what it is.
Yeah.
But, what season will end? Let's say the Wolves get to the Western Conference playoffs again. That'll end sometime in early June. So in early June.
It'd be nice to get to early June.
Yeah.
That's where it's been ending the last 2 years.
Yeah. Tune in early June and you'll hear Sad Eyes, more than likely. Wait, hold on.
For the other team, you might hear it in mid-April.
This one says, top 3 dead list of all time. Well done, young man. I felt like I did put a lot into the dead list there. I worked on that until late in the night. That's why I didn't get much sleep. It's not because I just like to stay up all night long. Stay up all night to get lucky. Stay up all night to get lucky. Stay up to write the dead list. I stayed up late to write the dead list, and I do feel like that was probably one of my very best. We'll break. We'll come back. Brian Oak at 12:30 with Rock Talk. No Rosie today. He's doing a surgical procedure. But we got plenty to get to, including, I think we might talk about the quarterback controversy, and I'll bring up the same points I've been bringing up day after day after day. Actually, I read an interesting story from an NFL observer who kind of thinks the same way I do in regards to the Vikings quarterback situation. We'll get to that and many other topics here on the Common Man program. But right now, Tenneby has a keyword to try to put $1,000 in somebody's hand.
The Fan and two men in a junk truck want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with our national cash contest. Just enter the keyword bills at KFAN.com now for a shot at winning. That keyword is bills. Enter now at KFAN.com. Aquarius Home Services has your shot at 4 tickets to see Green Bay take on the Purple in early January, plus $500 in game day cash. Register for your chance to win today on the KFAN contest page. That's KFAN.com/furnace to enter today.
Is it a possibility the Vikings will be so far out of the race for the NFC North that whoever wins these tickets will just scalp them to Packer fans? Packers are doing
maybe.
Packers are pretty good right now. They're 4-1-1. They lead the NFC North. Time now for Peek at the Purple, brought to you by our friends at Affordable Electric. If you took advantage of the $7,500 rebate for an EV vehicle, you'll need one of those level 2 chargers installed in your garage. And the folks at Affordable Electric have done hundreds of them, and they'll do it for you as well. Also, I mentioned this. If you have that 3 Seasons porch and you like watching football, but it gets a little nippy, especially if it's like a Thursday night game like tomorrow. They can install baseboard heaters and the like. They'll tell you what they can do. I don't know all the particulars, but they can provide heat for that 3 Seasons porch so while you are still outdoors. It's sort of like, I don't know if you do this, tend to be, during the middle of the summer when it's 90 degrees, I like the windows open, but I keep my air conditioning on too in the car. That's probably counterproductive, but I like feeling the breeze. But then I like to stay cool at the same time, so you can do the same. And, of course, if you're looking for work and you're an electrician, whether you are a journeyman or an apprentice, they're looking for help. For any of the aforementioned, go to affordable-electric.com. Affordable-electric.com. Remember, they are shockingly affordable. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, I'm beginning to actually enjoy it. It's almost like a joy buzzer. We're not going to get into the quarterback controversy now. I'll talk about that a little bit later. It's a meaty segment that I found on every single sports is your whole life just sports website. They take deep dives into everything, and somebody for CBSSports.com took a deep dive into the Viking quarterback situations. It's really nothing really groundbreaking, but it just seems like it's. I always like to see what the view of the local teams is from the outside. We know what we think, where we follow the team every day. We live here. We know what Bursich thinks, and Lieber and Alec Lewis and everybody else that writes locally, Ben Gessling, Kramer, Craig, everybody, right? We know what they think. I always like to see what people from the outside that might not be quite as close to the situation think, and we'll take a look at that a little bit later. Peek at the Purples, basically Vikings play tomorrow night to take on the Chargers. I'll hear it on the station. Pregame at 5, kickoff 7:15. Wentz will start. That was announced yesterday. McCarthy will be the emergency quarterback. Brosmer will be the backup. We think Aaron Jones will play, right? He's off the... or we're not sure.
He's eligible to play.
Eligible, okay.
So he was limited at practice yesterday.
He was limited. So whether he plays or not remains to be seen. Here's another CBSSports.com bit, Tenneby. I love these. We've looked at this one before. This is my favorite of all. We always have the power rankings. Power rankings. Where's the power? This is, they've done this before, NFL tier rankings, and not the kind that flow from your eyes after another Vikings lost. NFL tier rankings for all 32 teams. They have different categories. One of them tend to be draft preparations. In other words, they're already starting to prepare for the upcoming draft in 2026. Yeah. To the fringe, to the inner circle. Draft preparations tend to be, this probably makes sense. Tell me if you think all these teams should be included or if any of them have an outside chance. Browns, Cardinals, Dolphins, Giants, Jets, Raiders, Saints, and Titans. They all have 2-5 records or worse.
I would say I'm not ready to put the Giant. If I was going to take a team that could emerge from that group, it'd probably be the New York Giants, just because Jackson Dart, the team has played differently since Jackson Dart took over. Yeah. Obviously, a horrific loss the way they lost to Denver, but
they'll have a different kicker this week. Graham Gano, I think, comes back. And the kid that missed the 2 extra points from Ireland, he's out.
Yeah, the rest of those teams are all battling for number 1 pick in the draft next year.
Here are the fringe, Tenneby. This 13-team bucket is the largest tier by far, comprising almost half the league. It's full of okay teams with some major flaws that likely prevent them from being true contenders. They're not quite ready for the draft just yet, but also shouldn't be selling playoff tickets and definitely shouldn't be making hotel reservations in the Bay Area for Super Bowl LX. Those teams include Bears, Bengals, Broncos, Chargers, Commanders, Cowboys, Falcons, Jaguars, Panthers, Ravens, Steelers, Texans. Wait for it. Soon to be big game world champion Minnesota Vikings. The fringe.
Wow.
Not ready to mail it in quite yet, but it's looking more bleak than it is. What's a B word? Bleak than bright. It's looking more bleak than bright.
Bleak than booming. More bleak than bountiful.
Yeah, and you know what is interesting about this list is because a number of these teams tend to be, just a week or two ago, you were thinking, whoa, they might want to make hotel reservations, right? Broncos, Chargers were both winning football games. The Broncos defense seemed like they seemed like the closest thing to the 85 Bears we've seen since the 85 Bears. Chargers started out the season 3-0. How about the Jaguars? They were 4-1 at one point. Steelers, they were 4-1. They lost last week. Commanders, they were in the NFC Championship game last year. And then the Ravens. We know what, there were those that thought the Ravens would represent the AFC in the big game, and I think a lot of us had high hopes for the Vikings. Are all in the fringe. What do you think of that?
Well, something surprised me a little bit. The Denver Broncos are currently leading the AFC West, and if the season ended today, and I know it doesn't, but if the season ended today, they are tied with the Patriots for the second best record in the AFC. They'd be the 3 seed technically on tiebreaker, and they've won 4 in a row. So Denver beating even Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's on top of the AFC North, and the way that division's going, as long as Lamar Jackson's hurt, nobody's threatening Pittsburgh in that division. I know they just had a bad loss to Cincy, but that surprises me a little bit because both those teams are going to be playoff teams.
What do you think of the Vikings? Do you think that's where they
Vikings,
should be?
I can see them being in that range.
Are you ready for Tier 2, the outer circle? These teams are probably top contenders, but there's maybe just one thing that holds us back from placing them among the elite. They give an example. 49ers are in this list.
Yeah.
It's the injuries. How long can they keep doing what they're doing without their top guys? They'll get healthier on offense, but Nick Bosa and Fred Warner ain't coming back. Defensive coordinator Robert Saleh, is that how we say it?
Sure.
Saleh has made it work so far, but can that continue? Along with the 49ers tend to be Buccaneers, Colts, Eagles, Packers, Patriots, Seahawks. And then you have
Chiefs, Lions.
The inner circle, Bills, Chiefs, Lions,
Rams. That's interesting.
It's interesting. It's controversial as well, but that's what we're about. It's the middle name of the program. We'll take a break. By the way, Peek at the Purple brought to you by our friends at Affordable Electric, affordable-electric.com. After the other side of the break, it's time for Rock Talk, and included in Rock Talk will be Rock Rank. That's all coming up on the side of the break. Common Man program on the Fan.
The Wolves home opener this Sunday with Meat Sauce. Join Sauce at Kieran's Irish Pub from 3 to 5 p.m. for a Sunday Bucket Slam. Enjoy specials on Kona and Michelob Ultra Buckets and register for your chance to win signed Timberwolves prizes. Full details available at KFAN.com. Keyword calendar. Wednesday, just a bit half past the noon hour. I'm Comedy's 10 to be, as always, time for Rock Talk with Brian Oak.
Well, hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
This afternoon.
Yeah.
We talk about this often. You've now been deemed or dubbed the Grum Reaper because...
So good.
Well, what has happened, I think people understand. There's no need a real long explanation. A lot of the musicians and bands you and I grew up with, they're usually a little older than us because when we were growing up and you were, 10, 12, 13, 14 years old, they were probably 10 years older.
Right.
And they were in rock bands, and you loved them, and now they're getting to be in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s, and they're starting to pass away.
Well, and it's nice to celebrate these incredible and storied careers and, give one last great mention and pay tribute to eulogize some of these really incredible individuals. But it's also a stark reminder that every one of us, our minutes are numbered. It's important to live your life in a way that you recognize you're not going to live forever.
I texted you over the weekend, I think it was, and said Ace Frehley died. You said you saw that. And then I come to find out he'd actually died like a week or two ago. The announcement was delayed. I
didn't know that.
That's what I thought I saw.
Okay, I believe you. I was not aware of that.
Ace Frehley, lead guitarist and co-founder of the rock band Kiss, has died at age 74.
And the only information I really found out about it was complications from a fall. He's been in ill health on and off for many years. Apparently, recently it was as bad as it's been. And then I don't know what those complications were. They didn't really divulge too much information. But, we always hear about it. Falls are dangerous for the elderly, and especially if you're infirm or frail. It doesn't seem very far to the ground, but it can be real far. So, unfortunately, that cost him his life.
He inspired a generation of guitarists to perform on Kiss's first 9 albums. He died Thursday. Now, it says it was Thursday. I guess maybe the recent fall, he'd been hanging around a while. But anyway,
right.
His family released a statement saying that obviously they're devastated and heartbroken. Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons, two of the surviving members of the band, issued a joint statement and said they were devastated. They said he was an essential and irreplaceable rock soldier during some of the most formative foundational chapters of the band and its history. He is and will always be part of Kiss's legacy. All those who loved him, including our fans around the world. And because he left Kiss for a while and then came back.
A couple different times,
right.
yeah. He left after that first initial gigantic run in the 70s. He left in the early 80s, and then he was gone for a while, and then they got back together in the 90s, and he was part of that as well, and then with the band again for a few more years, and then not with the band, and they had other people playing there. But, we're talking about the Space Ace, everybody in Kiss had funny makeup and wild, crazy Kabuki-inspired makeup, and his character was the spaceman or the Space Ace, and I'm not.
Were you a Kiss guy?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So, kind of deeply, Kiss plays a very important role in my sort of evolution of rock fandom. But I'm a probably medium Kiss fan. They weren't the most brilliant band in the world, but super. This might be the pinnacle of the band that you don't have to like, but you have to respect, because they invented the spectacle of arena rock. There were certainly artists and people who were able to play to that level of crowd before them, but nobody ever did it like them and brought this to a whole new sort of multimedia spectacle with trapeze and unbelievable pyrotechnics and incredible visuals. My very first major rock concert was Kiss, and I didn't know anything about Kiss, didn't know who they were. I was an 11-year-old growing up in Coon Rapids, and I was sitting watching TV with my dad, and a commercial came on TV for their show, for their upcoming concert that was going to be at the old Met Stadium. And I didn't know what they were, and suddenly there were flames, and there were people in these incredible outfits, and blood was spitting, and it was just, I looked at it, and 11-year-old me had zero context for it, but I knew immediately that I was interested, and I turned around and asked my dad, I'm like, can we go to that? Then my dad, who had settled into the life of a father, but had pretty wild times in his past, he's like, yeah, I think we can. And so he got us a couple of tickets, and so in 1979, I went and saw the Kiss Dynasty Tour. Not their greatest era, but still a massive Kiss show. Judas Priest opened up, but again, I'm 11 years old, and so I have no context for this, but it very much helped fan the flames of my already deep love of rock and roll at that young age, prepubescent, but I'd never been to anything like that and didn't know spectacle. It's one of the reasons that I continue to go to live shows to this day. I don't expect them to be Kiss, but I'm always looking for that feeling I got on that particular night.
I never ever got into the Kiss thing. The costumes, they did pyrotechnics and such and all that. That never did anything for me. Not to say, like you say, you don't have to like them, you have to respect them. It's not like
they just played an important role in the evolution of the live experience. The albums are fine. They're not terrible, but they're certainly not great.
I want to rock and roll, right?
That's the signature one, absolutely. And party every day.
Well, and the one song by Kiss that I just love is one that you just would never think a band like that would do, and that would be the song Beth.
Well, and that's Peter Criss. That's their drummer.
Correct.
Yeah, and it was the biggest one he ever sang on. And no, it's an absolute love ballad from a band that normally is about rock and rolling all night and partying every day. And
the song was basically, for those that haven't heard it, it's a ballad. And it was
very soft and beautiful.
And he's singing about being in a band and say, Beth, I'll get back to you when I can, but me and the boys are playing right
Exactly.
now.
No, it's about that loneliness on the road when you're not just enjoying the fruits of being a rock star, but there's someone waiting for you at home that you actually love. Ace Frehley, so again, I don't go super deep on Kiss, but I have several friends that go very deep, and to a person, every single person's favorite member of the band is Ace Frehley, because he's widely recognized as the most sort of serious musician or talented musician in the band. And back in 1978, in one of the most indulgent moves in rock history, they put out the Milestone series where all four members each got a solo record. Okay. And now those are really collectible, and they've got interlocking posters if you find the originals. But the Ace Frehley one is widely recognized as the single best of any of those Milestone releases.
Well, one last bit of I'm obsessed with Beth. Not her, but just
the song. It's a great song. When
they played it in concert, because if you've listened to the record version that's played on the radio, there's strings and everything. They just had all that stuff recorded, and he would just sing. So the band didn't even participate in the song.
Right.
He would just sing it with. And I saw the same thing when Gary Wright did Dreamweaver with you saw it with me during
Ringo's All-Stars.
Ringo All-Star Band. I also saw it during Hippie Fest over at the zoo, where same thing with all those space sounds and Dreamweaver. It's just all on like a cassette, not cassette, but you know what I'm saying.
But no, it's all pre-recorded.
It's all just pre-recorded. That's the way we do it. Now, one other before unless you have a couple of things we want to do rock rank, but I had one other thing. This was a death in music, and I'd never heard of this person before. This was a few weeks ago, but I saved it. Have you ever heard of Sonny Curtis?
Sonny Curtis does not ring a bell for me.
He wrote the song "I Fought the Law."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which was a massive hit. Right?
Yeah, huge.
Talk about mailbox money.
And covered by everybody, increasing the mailbox money. No, it's a staple. Absolutely, I know that song.
But and he was a member of the Crickets with Buddy Holly and the Crickets. But what I found interesting is just how diverse these people can be with songs. He wrote "I Fought the Law." He also wrote the theme song to the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
What?
Isn't that crazy? So here's a guy that's writing rock and roll music. Yeah, that's what it says. It says Sonny Curtis.
I believe you, but wow.
A vintage rock and roller who wrote the raw classic "I Fought the Law" and posed the enduring question, who can turn the world on with her smile, as the writer-crooner of the theme song to the Mary Tyler Moore Show died at age 88. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Who can take a nothing day and suddenly make it all seem worthwhile?
I just find I just find that interesting that he was a vintage rock and roller. But then he wrote a TV theme song that most people from that era would recognize.
But it speaks to the talent of a musician, and certainly in this case, particularly a songwriter, in that they're not wedded to one genre. They know a turn of phrase when they hear it. They know a good melody when they hear it, and they can write just about anything. I love fun facts, doing what I've done for a living and being a music head. I live for fun facts, and that is my first fun fact of the day, and I'm tucking that one away. That's a good one.
Now, so here's another fun fact that I was not aware of. If this is indeed true, it's from Brad John Bryant KFAN text line. It says Beth was Peter Criss's mother. It's weird. So I don't know.
Oh.
Maybe he was singing to his mother. Maybe.
Well, because that's not the vibe you get off the song. No. But I guess depending on interpretation, I guess that makes sense.
It could very well be.
That's not the way I've always thought of it for however long I've known that song. Many, many, many years.
People are asking they ask questions every week, and sometimes I don't get to them. So let's just get to these real quick.
Yeah, for sure.
This one says, officially my fourth time asking this. Big Queens of the Stone Age fan. My favorite album is Rated R. Can we ask Brian Oak what his favorite album is?
Absolutely. And again, this is a tough one because depending on my mood, Queens of the Stone Age has something for everyone. Rated R that was their coming out party. That was the rubber sole to the one I'm going to pick, which I consider their revolver, and that would be Songs for the Deaf, the album that came out right afterwards. Features Mark Lanigan on a bunch of vocals and really some of the rawest riffs in their entire catalog. That said, to whoever our emailer is right there, my favorite song by Queens comes off Rated R, the album he picked. I'm assuming but the album that they picked, and that's The Lost Art of Keeping a Secret. So no, Rated R is as good as anything in their catalog. I'm cool with that, but for me, it's definitely Songs for the Deaf.
What's Mr. Oak's take on Stone Temple Pilots? Fan? Not a fan?
You know, Scott Weiland, the lead singer, was such a troubled individual, did problems with drugs and mental health, and he was just always such a wreck. And I had a chance to interview those guys a couple times, and he was basically non-responsive because he had fried himself with the rigors of touring, how popular the band was, constant drug use, which ultimately, as we know, took his life right here in Minneapolis on a tour bus when he was playing with Velvet Revolver. The band themselves, though, they're undeniable. You know, they're great. They went from that debut album Core, which had a much grindier, rougher rock sound to it, and then sort of turned into these, not balladeers, but they were an alternative mainstay. Like, they were to alternative music what Train was like to adult contemporary music. They were just staples. They had hit after hit. They were very good at what they did. I like them. I don't love them, but yeah, I like Stone Temple Pilots a lot.
Comment is incorrect about Beth. The song was about his wife, originally named Beck, but Gene Simmons told him to change it to Beth.
Oh. Because Beck might be a little too familiar.
Yeah, well, it's something about more of a male name, I guess.
I suppose.
And they were thinking about Jeff Beck is what he says. I don't know if
yeah. We could have gone with Becca, but it would be a different song then.
Yes. So again, sometimes you get information about songs and they're incorrect. So I don't know which one's right there.
Right.
I don't know. Can you ask Oak his thoughts on the rock band Geese? I saw them this past weekend in St. Paul. Excellent show from a young band. Lucky to see them in such a small packed venue. I've not heard of them.
So they played at the Amsterdam, and the only reason I know that is I also work part-time at a record store, Mill City Sound in Hopkins, which, by the way, for collectors, brilliant destination. But someone came in there and asked me, because I can't tell you the number of people who come in like, love you on Rock Talk, but someone came in and asked me if I saw the Geese show last night. And I'm like, who's Geese? I've literally never heard of them. So that led into me doing kind of a deep dive there while I was at work. And they're another one of these bands that are, freakishly well respected among their fans. And there's absolutely something happening there. What that is, I don't know, but I don't think the Amsterdam, I think, was completely packed. And I don't think you'll get to see them in a place that size again, at least for the time being, because they seem to be on an ascending path. But I know next to nothing about them, but everybody who I've heard talk about them, which is now two people, deeply, deeply love them.
One last text message before we do Rock Rank.
Rock Rank.
It says, and I did see this because I texted you this. Mm-hmm. Sam Rivers, bass player for Limp Bizkit, passed away a few days ago at age 48.
Yeah, way too young.
I did not. I did not see it. It was the last time I read a story about it was right away, and basically, you know how they always say no cause of death has been released yet. Do we know? And what
but we don't really know everything. We know that he had a cardiac arrest, and when they found him, he was non-responsive as a result of that cardiac arrest. What leads up to that and what presaged that, I have zero idea. Limp Bizkit was, as they say in the biz, a little after my time. Something you can relate to. Now, I was around, but I was doing sort of the mainstream alternative stuff that was happening. That was sort of my first foray into radio when that was going down, and that new metal thing was more of a 93X kind of situation. And so while they were still under the same umbrella, the new metal was very different than sort of the alternative I was peddling at the time. And Limp Bizkit was fine. They were fun. But, we're not talking about important lyrics or interesting songs. We are talking about a band that is fun to party to and, basically spoke to the angst of young people when they landed. Just One of Those Days is an all-time staple and will always be revered by a certain age group in this country because it was very much an anthem to teen frustration and just life with frustration. When you're angsty and you're that age, somebody comes along and articulates it for you beautifully, and that song becomes part of your canon.
Tennessee, it's time.
Rock Rank.
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 All right, Oak, maybe the most cliche of all rock rank questions.
Hit me.
Oak, what is your top 5 albums of all time?
Ooh.
Now, see, this one, and when Antenna B told me about this, I got back to him like, we don't want to narrow that down to an era or a genre or a whatever.
We'll do that in future rock ranks.
I appreciate it, but it's just, so this is literally just my personal top 5 albums of all time.
That's what we want.
And again, a week from now, we could ask this question, and there might be a couple changes in there, right? This is one of those that's always changing. But as it stands right now, the 5 records, and I'd use the criteria, what do I go back to the most? Even if there are new records I love, things I'm into a little more right now, this is over the course of my life. What are the albums that I will always go back to and always speak to me? I never get tired of them. There are no songs you skip on them. Coming in at number 5 is a 1967 release from the supergroup Cream, Disraeli Gears.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's the cover, first of all, might be the single greatest album cover in rock history with all the crazy day glow colors. And you can't get more psychedelic than that. And it was designed by the legendary album designer Hypnosis. But inside, you've got this blues influenced rock and roll, but it was an explosion. It's the only Clapton I really love. And it's just so good. The songs are written well. They're imaginative. This is sort of peak British theater, psychedelic, heavy rock of the late 60s. And Disraeli Gears, it's great all the way through. Every British album in that era has one clunker on it, one sort of silly, goofy sing-song song. And they've got that there. But to me, it's a perfect record, and I listen to it all the time.
Number 4.
Number 4 is American and came out about 10 years after the record we just talked about. They hailed from New York, and this record hit me at a time in my life where not only did I find the lead singer rather fetching. Again, this would have been the same year. I was 11 years old when I found this band. Yeah, baby. Blondie, Parallel Lines is number 4 for me all time. And they have other great records, but that was my entree, really. And the number of times while I'm sitting there in the family room basement playing the Atari 2600 Pitfall, if memory serves, that I just put that, you're welcome. If I'd put that Parallel Lines on and just flipped it back and forth and back for hours at a time. And I still, every time I put it on, the whole thing holds up. I'm absolutely in love with it.
Number 3?
Number 3, Minnesota. This would not make it on many other people's top 100 list, but the legendary Minnesota band Husker Du. Back in the 80s, we were Seattle before Seattle was Seattle, right? We had Prince, we had the Replacements, we had Soul Asylum in their early phase before their 90s glory, and we also had what is widely recognized as one of the greatest rock bands or most influential rock bands in the 80s and 90s, and that would be Husker Du. And they had put out a string of incredible albums, but they put out a landmark double album band, which for a hardcore band in the mid 80s on a really cool label like SST, this was unheard of. You don't do a concept double album. They did, and this record more than any other, and I say this without qualification, this record more than any other changed what I thought I knew about music, what I came to expect from music, and what I've really always loved about music. It coalesced in a way I'd never heard anything like them before, and although they influenced hundreds, if not thousands, hundreds, if not thousands of other bands and artists, there still hasn't been anybody quite like Husker Du. So Zen Arcade, their epic double album is number 3
it's
on
also
my
just
list.
Fun to say.
Husker Du?
Yeah.
It is. And they got little umlauts over both U's.
Husker Du, how about number 2?
Number 2, a band I know that's very near and dear to both of our hearts, and that would be
Candy-O.
The Cars. Candy-O by The Cars is, and again, I can hear arguments that their first debut album is even better because
That's
it
my
is,
top 5.
it's perfect. But Candy-O, again, maybe it just hit me at the right time.
Oh, it's
maybe
spectacular.
maybe that cover by Antonio Vargas might have held my attention a little bit as I was starting to understand more about the world around me. But it's just so well constructed. To me, they're the perfect new wave band because lots of new wave. And this, again, it speaks to when we all grow up, right? And when we come into our own musically. And when new wave was happening, it was either very heavy synthesizers, which I love, or very much almost post-punk kind of guitar stuff. The Cars not only melded both of these beautifully, but they cranked out top 10 hits left and right for more than 7-8 years. They're so good. The 2 lead singers, everybody in the band knows exactly what their role is. I just think they're one of the great American, even though they're one of the worst live bands I've ever seen, maybe the most boring live band I've ever seen. Them as a songwriting and a song making crafting unit are just among my very favorites, and Candy-O's my number 2 album of all time.
Number 1 White Album?
No. Well, so I've got this whole list of also-rans and honorable mentions. The White Album album is right there atop that. It almost made it. But for me, and I've said it many times,
David Bowie.
He's my favorite of all time. But where do you pick? Because he's been so many different characters. He's done so much, at all of it very interesting and at a high level and inventive and influential. For me, it's Hunky Dory. Now, the most recognizable album in his catalog is absolutely Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. And before that, he was experimenting with all these styles. He had hit with Space Oddity, but then couldn't quite get his groove back. And he put out The Man Who Sold the World, which is really kind of a heavy rock record. And then he came up right before Ziggy Stardust with the 1971 album Hunky Dory. And it is a showcase of...
Changes is almost a perfect song.
It is. I mean, and that's the thesis statement on that record. That's the song everyone knows is Changes, but Queen Bitch is on there. Song for Andy Warhol, or Andy Warhol. Song for Bob Dylan is on there. The Kooks is on there. Fill Your Heart. It's got as many different styles as there are songs. He's excellent at all of them. Every one of the songs on there matters. And I can't think of an album that remains as satisfying and does as much for me as David Bowie's Hunky Dory. I genuinely believe, as a cohesive unit, it's the greatest rock record of all time.
Mine 5 would be, and I don't know if they're necessarily in this order.
Go on.
But I would go Cars' debut album.
Excellent.
Cars. I would go with Steely Dan's Asia.
Yeah, and I can't argue with that.
I would go with Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon.
Also perfect.
I think I would also go with... this is going to be out there a little bit. I mean...
What's your favorite? It's personal taste.
What's my favorite? Just because I don't know, I have to think about it more. I was a huge Edgar Winter, Johnny Winter. Their live album, Roadwork, I think is spectacular. And then my favorite album of all time is the Beatles' Let It Be.
Yeah, well, and we've talked about that.
And that Let It Be is probably on the bottom of the list of most people. And for a number of different reasons that I could expound on at another time. But the music's playing. It's time to go.
It's time to go.
We didn't get to my list. That's too bad. I know you guys are just so bummed about that.
I actually would have loved to. We don't have time for your list.
Blue Group from Weezer.
Yeah. The Blue album, the Green album, the Red album. What's it called? What's the one that's got Rad in it?
Red album.
Yeah, sure.
You have a podcast.
I do. It's called The Brian Oak Show Podcast. And earlier, just yesterday, in fact, today's podcast that came out today features Greg Norton of Husker Du, as they've got this amazing box set coming out in early November on Numero Group, documenting one of the greatest concerts the band ever played. The Brian Oak Show Podcast is available on the free iHeartRadio app.
We'll see you next Wednesday.
See you then.
That's Brian Oak and Rock Talk with Rock Rank. We'll take a break, come back 5-3-4 next 10 to be, correct?
Yes. It's time for your official Minnesota Timberwolves prediction.